So this is the third part to the final sprint video. The CPPs here are just init game, which sets the window name, sets how big the window is, sets the color of the window. Load resources, which is getting rid of here because it's pre-made, loading them as default models. But then it's adding the model for Stitch, for the model for the unit sphere XY, which is calling Stitch. The B sphere, once again Stitch. .tga, which you have in your assets folder. The image for Stitch, the shaders that it needs. Then it's setting a new scene. Once that starts, it loads the new scene. User code. It's the stuff the user would do. Draws the axes in the middle of the world. A simple draw here, and then making the axis a graphics object, a new graphics object. Plane is done the exact same way. Same thing. The bullet for I made my bullets cottages, so in here there's a special constructor, an update, a draw, a collision, because I copied basically the bullet class over. Or sorry, not bullet, cottage class over. Collision check doesn't do anything, but then there's the position, the world, and the rotation. Does this initialize thing here in the specialized constructor because that gets called from the bullet factory. Then it draws it here and updates it down there. The camera, I have the God camera, and I had a null camera in there, but the null camera isn't anything, so that's just old code that I had. God camera is the positions, all the variables for that. Sorry, and an update. See, update just allows me to move the camera around using I, J, K, and L and the arrow keys, and sets it up into the scene. The cottage updates object, draws an object, has the collision with the one given parameter, which is collision with the collidable pointer. So it just checks if it's colliding with something. Setting the texture light, and then in here it's setting texture light to new graphics object, setting up what a cottage looks like. In the draw, it draws the binding sphere around it, and then changes the colors if the check switches to true or false. Bullet factory, very similar to how we did it in Centipede. Singleton, recycling items, private bullet, private recycle bullet, create bullet, recycle bullet. Public versions of those two things, and a terminate. So private bullet creates it if it doesn't have one. Recycling bullet recycles it when it exits the scene, which isn't working right now. I wasn't able to completely test this because, like I said before, of the alarms. Terminate, bullet factory, destructor. Scenes. So inside the null scene, it just initializes this object, updates, draws, does scene end. This scene just has nothing in it because it's the one that just starts off. The first user scene, which is the one that it currently shows until it switches, because when it switches over to user scene 2. But initialize, update, draw, scene end, and then all of the different objects you want in that scene. You need to set them to what their type is of, and then you don't need to update or draw in here, but when the scene ends, you need to be able to delete them all. Setting up a scene was just a documentation about me explaining how you would set up a scene with a ship and a cottage. No, not a cottage, with the plane and stuff. Ship. I have the enemy ship, which, like I said, does the exact same thing as the ship. Everything is the same because it's copied over. Because there's a counter that counts down and then resets, but it will inch towards you as the counter ticks by, as like your basic enemy AI movement. It's really dumb movement because it just moves towards you. But that's what that was. The ship, once again, same thing, except you can collide with the collision with the frigate, but collision with something else. The ship here then sets the collision here. You can draw it. It has the binding sphere, so it changes colors whenever you run into the other binding sphere of the cottage. In the update, E changes the scene, WASD moves the ship. Space shoots out cottages. And then the last thing is the sprite object class, which updates and draws. And in here, just nothing in the update because the sprite isn't being updated, but it renders out the sprite when you draw it. And then in the constructor, it makes a new sprite, sets the position, sets the scale, sets the angle, and then updates sprite. And that is it for my thing. Thank you.